Representative Zachary, have you ever attended an implicit bias training?
I'm not an educator.
The point I'm trying to make is that implicit bias training, while it may be uncomfortable, is to familiarize oneself with unconscious biases and unconscious prejudices that many members have. Are you aware that students of color are disproportionately suspended and expelled from Tennessee schools? Are you aware of this fact?
I'm probably not aware of any of the facts that you're going to bring to me, no.
No worries, that's why we're here, my friend.
Damn! I love it. We should just call it the Tennessee School now because, well, class has been in session for the GOP members. New Democratic star Justin Jones was once again demonstrating how great of an orator he is as he held Republican Representative Jason Zachary to account. This over his anti-implicit bias training bill.
Representative Zachary, have you ever attended an implicit bias training?
I'm not an educator.
From my understanding, we have an implicit bias training here as legislators. One of our members who recently called for lynching was required to...
Representative Jones, that's outside. You're talking about a member. Please stay on the bill.
The point I'm trying to make is that implicit bias training, while it may be uncomfortable, is to familiarize oneself with unconscious biases and unconscious prejudices that many members have. Just because something makes somebody uncomfortable does not mean that we should ban it. This is simply to give our educators another tool to make sure that all students are treated with equity and dignity, respect. It's really extreme for us to say that because of discomfort, we should ban something for the interest of one group at the expense of another. Are you aware that students of color are disproportionately suspended and expelled from Tennessee schools? Are you aware of this fact?
I'm probably not aware of any of the facts that you're going to bring to me, no.
No worries, that's why we're here, my friend. The fact is that the majority of students who face disciplinary actions are students of color and students with disabilities. So one of the things that this implicit bias training does is help to familiarize educators to not automatically see students of color as threats or to see them as more rambunctious. I'll give you a good example because I've talked to teachers in my district. Sometimes students who are a little bit more energetic, if they're students of color, they'll be penalized as being disruptive or insubordinate, but if they're a white student, they'll be called articulate, inquisitive. They'll say that they need, to be challenged more. And so that's an implicit bias of how the discrepancies of how students of color are treated. Are you aware of the statistics for your county of what percentage of Knox County students who are suspended and disciplined are students of color? Are you aware of that fact, Representative Zachary?
Representative, I think everything that you're discussing reinforces comments that have already been made here on the House floor actually today. The importance of the family, the importance of a mom and dad being at home, and the importance of a guidance for our children.
With all due respect to my colleague and my friend from Knox County, what I'm trying to just address is that there are systemic issues of racism, there are systemic issues of criminalizing children of color, trying to give a more comprehensive view for educators. Maybe a student has a family member who doesn't speak English, so how would you engage with that member? I mean, this is simply just trying to give our educators more tools to be a better service to these students. I don't think this is in the right direction. I think that this is based off of white fragility. People don't want to talk about these things because they don't want to be held accountable. But I think that we're mature enough to talk about these things, particularly educators. We're mature enough to talk about privilege and bias in ways that students of color are disproportionately impacted by these biases in our education system. This is about disrupting the school-to-prison pipeline. This is about making sure that all of our students can thrive and flourish. What makes you uncomfortable about implicit bias training? You said that it referred to people as oppressors. Does that language make you uncomfortable?
Representative, again, in your comments, you use the term white fragility. I have heard you mention numerous times while you've been here, and you continue to make an effort to make a point, but it doesn't give you the opportunity to make a difference in this body. You may make an incredible impact on social media and outside, but Representative
Zachary.
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Zachary.
You can literally see this man get redder and redder as he's taught a lesson. Now this follows an outstanding speech Jones gave last week as a GOP representative used the good old conservative Christian crutch to excuse their bigotry.
My belief is in God. I settle other things with facts and data. The fact of the matter is, sir, this bill is not racist. It is not unconstitutional.
Representative Jones.
We keep bringing up God, but God says in Isaiah 10, woe to those who pass unjust laws that hurt the poor and rob them of their rights. And so stop using God to justify your bigotry. Stop using God to justify hatred and racism. Stop using God to put
Representative Jones, you are out of order.
Both Justin Jones and Justin Pearson have soared into the spotlight since their counterparts tried to stifle their speech. And the result, well, it's been the exact opposite of what their counterparts intended.
It seems that we are persisting on a path of legislating discrimination and inequity.
Disagree with the premise. This is a bill that I think advances a different view, what I can call the American view. Country's founding documents, Thomas Jefferson wrote, among those self-evident truths, there were certain inalienable rights that all members of our human race were endowed with by their Creator, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It is so interesting that you changed the words of Thomas Jefferson from what he actually wrote, which was all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it is also interesting that all of the names that you mentioned who built the foundations of this country were elite, slave-owning white men. It is fascinating that you think those are the virtues that we need to propagate and support by passing anti-transgender children legislation.
And now, well, their megaphone continues to reach far and wide.
I think the thing that it was a key message was that this is not a moment, it is a movement.
That's right.
And that what is going to transform this system is going to be continued people pressure.
That's right.
We come from a state where we have an NRA-endorsed governor calling a special session on guns, something that's unheard of because of people power.
That's right.
Because of young people taken to the Capitol by the thousands. And so I think that what message I think we all were in agreement of in that overall was that this is a movement and we'll continue to push. This is our Selma moment. This is a moment in which we have a state that just days after mass shooting chose to expel the 2 youngest black lawmakers rather than take action on common sense gun reform. And it's elevated the issue to the national conversation, their extreme reaction. And that's why we had the vice president come the day after on Good Friday to come stand in solidarity in Tennessee. You have the president, saying that we were kicked out the state house, and yet we're here at the White House discussing this on the national platform, because what happens in Tennessee, I would say to the media, is going to have national implications. That Tennessee is going to set a model for the nation about transforming this conversation around guns and moving forward to a state and to a society where we value the lives of children over the campaign contributions of the NRA.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.